Good morning, honorable members. Deputy
Recording
Speaker,
in
House
progress.
Chairpersons. Honorable members, I would like to start this meeting of the National Programming Committee. The agenda has been circulated to all members, and I would like to propose that before we go on the consideration of the parliamentary program, we take an item which will be presented by our Secretary, Xaso, Secretary of the National Assembly, dealing with the budget process. As we know that next week we are supposed to go through the appropriations. Honorable members, I would like to take apologies, Mr. Xaso, if we've got any.
Madam Speaker, I've received none. Good morning.
Okay, from the Office of the Secretary, we didn't receive any apologies. I'm not sure whether parties do have apologies that they would like to table.
Madam Speaker.
I don't see any hand.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Mkhalakis.
Sorry about the delay.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Nodada, I believe, is absent today. He just asked that I submit his apology.
Okay, thank you very much. Apology noted. Any other member who would like to make an apology for their member who was supposed to be in the meeting?
Good morning, Honorable
If none-
Speaker. Honorable Chief Whip will be joining us
Yes.
now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Zagude. Apology noted.
Speaker,
Honorable, yes, Honorable Kalibi.
I would like to tender the apology of Honorable Natasha, and the Chief Whip of the EFF will join us shortly.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Noted. Honorable Reddy.
Honorable Speaker, I just want to, the Chief Whip of MK Party will be joining us shortly.
Thank you very much. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable Reddy and Mkalipi, your hands are up. Would you like to?
Take us hand, Speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, we have noted the apologies of the members that are either not going to be able to be in the meeting or are running late. I'm now tabling the agenda for consideration by members.
I support the agenda with a speaker with that addition coming before the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any seconder?
I second, Speaker. I second, thank you. Ready?
Thank you very much, Honorable Reddy. I will now go to agenda number 3, where we're going to receive the reports from the committee section and Bill's office. Can we take the committee reports, Honorable Ms. Ganyaza, sorry.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Good morning to you, members and colleagues as well. I'm now presenting the report of the committee section on bills and other matters before committees. Speaker, I wish to state that the Standing Committee on Appropriations has reported on the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill last night. Therefore, we no longer have 28 bills before committees, but rather 28 bills before committees. That is reflected on slide number 2. The next slide is slide number 5. Slide number 5 reflects what I've just spoken about, which is the reporting by the Standing Committee on Appropriations on the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill, which was finalized yesterday and published in the ATC. The next slide is slide number 24. Slide number 24 reflects a new bill that was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development on the 11th of July 2025. And that bill is called the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill, and the committee is yet to schedule that particular bill. The next slide is slide number 33. Slide number 33, we would like members to note that the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technology, with regards to the statutory appointment to the MDDA, the committee has conducted the interviews on the 15th of July. Thank you very much, Speaker. That is the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kanyaza. I'm not sure from legal whether it's Ms. Mata on the bills who
Good
will take the
morning.
presentation.
Good morning, Honorable Speaker, honorable members and colleagues. Honorable Speaker, we do agree that there are now 27 bills before committees, 17 of which are executive bills and 10 are private members' bills, and 2 bills are on the order paper for consideration by the House. Then our report will start from slide number 3, where we indicating on slide number 3 the newly introduced bill, which is the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill, B18 of 2025. It was introduced on the 11th of July and published in the ATC on the same day. The bill was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Justice. On slide number 5, Honorable Speaker, we also reporting that the Standing Committee on Appropriations has since reported on the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill. The bill is also now on the order paper for consideration by the House. The last reporting slide is slide number 9. We are reporting on the slide number 9, thank you. We are reporting on the Older Persons Amendment Bill, B11D of 2022. We're reporting that the bill has been sent to the President for assent, and the second language of this bill is Sesotho. And currently, there's only one bill that is with the President for assent. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mata. Honorable members, there are the 2 reports from the committee section and the bills office. Are there any takers who would like to make interventions? Honorable Reddy.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to raise a serious concern, and I know it may be a matter that should be taken up via the committee. However, as the programming committee responsible for monitoring progress, I think it's important that we make note of this. It's implementing the slow progress in implementing the State Capture Commission's recommendations, particularly those relating to SAP's crime intelligence. Despite the final report being submitted over 2 years ago and Parliament's own implementation plan referred to in January 2023, this report reflects only one substantive engagement on the matter to date. Speaker, given the critical role of crime intelligence in national security and its historical manipulation during the state capture, during a certain era, this delay is unacceptable. What we need is clarity on timelines, measurable outcomes, and concrete accountability mechanisms. Can we please ensure that that happens? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Reddy. I'll raise that matter with the committee concerned. As you know, that this is a programming committee. We are not monitoring progress on what the various committees in terms of their oversight are doing, but I will raise it with the relevant chairpersons in the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. Are there any takers on the reports that have been presented? I do not see any hand. Thank you very much again, Honorable Mbata, Ms. Mbata and Ms. Kanyaza. I'll now ask Xaso to make a presentation on the matter of the appropriations. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Honorable members, I'm going to talk about the passage of the appropriation bill. And we have circulated a document. And starting with paragraph 1 of the document, we're just fixing sound issue. Switch this on. Just a moment. Okay. Paragraph 1 of the document. Can members hear me? We are connected again. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Paragraph 1 of the document. The point that we are making here is that of course, we're stating the obvious, that the appropriation bill allocates funds to various national departments and entities. And the bill includes a schedule which comprises departmental votes. We'll get to this later on. And that the respective votes, this is paragraph 2, are referred to different portfolio committees. And in case where a portfolio committee wishes to amend a vote, the rules allow these committees to approach the standing committee, while portfolio committees can propose amendments. These amendments it is only the report of the standing committee which will then serve before the House with the amendments. Now,
Speaker, Chair, sorry.
What is happening? There's someone behind Caso, and Caso is not audible, Speaker, and someone is busy behind.
Busy behind Castle.
No, there is a problem of some kind.
Can you hear me now, honorable members?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Caso. If
My
all
sincere
of us
apologies.
can mute our mics.
Okay. Now, in paragraph 4, we're saying that once the standing committee has submitted its report on the bill, the House next week, Wednesday, will first consider that report. And of course, it will then thereafter consider the bill. So after the report is considered, we then move to the first reading of the bill. And after the first reading of the bill, we'll do the departmental votes. And after the departmental votes, we then do the schedule. And once we do the schedule, we do the second reading. Now we'll start with the first reading of the bill. Now in paragraph 2 in other words, paragraph B2, we state that if the Assembly rejects the first reading of the bill, it rejects the bill. Now, this is based, the House may consider, pass, amend, or reject any legislation before it. So any legislation means any legislation. So in this context, on the first reading of the appropriation bill, the process ends there. So in a sense, this is the first hurdle. But if the House, in its wisdom, passes the first reading of the bill, we then get to the consideration of the departmental votes one by one. And in this paragraph 3, we're just stating that theoretically, at this point, the House can refer the bill back, deals with the consideration of the departmental votes. So these votes will be put individually, and there will be an opportunity for parties to declare. Time has been allocated to the parties, that has been communicated, and it's likely that there will be divisions. Of course, the first division will be for 5 minutes, and the subsequent divisions could be for 1 minute or even 15 seconds. Now, it is important to note that a rejection of any of the votes would mean that the House should, and I would like to emphasize that point. I'm on paragraph C2, if my colleagues could assist me to go there, please. Should not be able to consider or agree to the schedule and the second reading of the bill as presented. What is more is that the House may not, by virtue of rejecting a vote, cause an amendment to the schedule. Amendments to money bills may only be brought about in accordance with the process determined by the Money Act, which included members of Cabinet. So the point we're making here, honorable members, is that if for whatever reason vote 5 and 6 are not agreed to, 1, we are now saying that we advise that the House must go through all the votes up to the last vote, so that the House is able to get a full picture of where parties stand on the votes. But we're advising that if there is any vote that is rejected or votes rejected,
we are missing some important, very important points there. There's an issue with the sound, please.
we should not put the schedule to the House. Because if we put the
Hi, his signal is very bad, Speaker. Bad.
Very bad, very bad. Bad. I second that.
If we get to that point, in other words, where there is no agreement on all the votes, we're then advising that at that point, the bill must be recommitted to the committee. And why do we say this? We are saying this because in ordinary cases where you deal with legislation, where there are amendments, because the rules say amendments can be brought before the House, any member can bring amendments before the House, and the rule then says the House can either consider those amendments at that point, or the House can refer the bill together with the amendments back to the committee for reconsideration. And therefore, we're saying in this instance, we should use that principle that if there is no unanimous agreement, let me say, by unanimous agreement, I mean there is no majority that has been able to pass all the votes in this instance, the vote together with the bill must then be referred to the committee, the standing committee on appropriation, for further processing. Yeah. So in that event, we will then not proceed to take a decision on the schedule. We will not proceed to take a decision on the second reading of the bill. But then if we say that, assuming that, okay, the votes are able to pass and we get to the second reading of the bill, and the second reading of the bill is not agreed to, then the bill is rejected. Once it won't go back to the committee, because the bill would be dead in the parliamentary process. It would mean the bill must be reintroduced into the system. In summary, honorable members were saying, there are basically 4 steps here. The one step is the first reading of the bill. If the first reading of the bill passes, we proceed to the next step. If the first reading of the bill does not pass, the bill is rejected, the budget must be reintroduced. But if we pass that first reading, we then get to the votes. We go through the votes. If the votes cannot pass, if all the votes cannot pass, some pass, others are not able to pass, we are advising that the budget must be sent back, recommitted by the Speaker to the committee for further processing and possible comeback with amendments if that is the view of the committee. But if we pass that step in the House, we then get to the schedule, and the schedule is rejected. The vote is rejected. The budget is rejected. Or we get to the second reading, and the second reading does not pass. The budget is again rejected, and it must be reintroduced into the system. Madam Speaker, I think I should pause on that note, and we'll take questions. And again, apologies, honorable members, for the technical difficulties we had initially.
Thank you very much, Mr. Xaso. I've noted Honorable Makhubela, Honorable Khaliphi, Honorable Reddy, in that order.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you, Secretary. Okay, I thought I understood yesterday at the Chief Whips Forum. I think there's a step that I just need clarity. I know step 1, the first reading, that's fine. If that doesn't pass, then the whole bill is rejected. But step 2, where we get to the individual votes, I thought the legal opinion said yesterday that if one of the votes fails, let's say we pass vote 1 is fine, but we get to vote 2, it fails. That means the whole budget has failed. We don't need to proceed further. Am I correct? But now I'm hearing that we can still proceed with all the other votes until we finish vote, whether it's 46, 48, whether some have passed, some have not passed. What would be the point when it effectively means the vote, I mean, the whole budget must be referred back to the committee? Please clarify for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, Honorable Makhubela, you are correct. That was our presentation at the Chief Whip Forum yesterday. The forum requested us to reconsider that position because the concern was that if you did that, you would not be having the full picture of the positions of parties on the budget. In other words, if let's say you failed on vote number 1, you don't know what the concerns could be with vote number 15. So if you have to refer this to the committee, you need to refer the full package so that when you refer it, the committee is able to say, okay, these are the votes that there are concerns.
Just a follow-up, Speaker, if I may.
There are hands, Jay, here. Can't raise the speaker now.
Speaker, are you there?
Don't allow it. And therefore, we think it is possible.
No, we didn't hear. I didn't hear anything that was spoken.
Hey, Pastor's gadget.
Order, honorable members. I'm sorry. I think there's a network challenge. Mr. Xaso and myself are in the speaker's boardroom. So it's not his computer. I think there's a network challenge. It just switches us off. Apologies about that.
Yes.
So speaker, as he was responding to Honorable Makhubela.
All right.
Thank you. He will start all over again.
Yes, I was saying, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Makhubela, you are correct. That was our presentation at the Chief Whips Forum. We said if you fail at budget vote 2, you stop the process. the concern was, but then we don't know what would have happened with vote number 10 or even vote 20 or 30. And therefore the standing committee would not be able to other votes because they don't know what the issue is with them. We're then asked to reconsider our position, which we have done. And we're now updating the honorable members that it is possible that you could go through all the votes so that you are able to get a picture of what is happening with the rest of the departmental votes before you refer the matter back to the committee. That's really the response to that.
Thank you. Honorable Reddy, followed by Honorable Kalipi, followed by Honorable Ghana, followed by Honorable Nduli.
No. Sorry, Speaker. The order should have been Honorable Kalipi before me.
Yes.
The question that I had was in response to
Honorable Reddy.
Yes.
Honorable Reddy, let's respect the order as it was. I'm sorry, honorable members, because on the screen you come first. Honorable Kalipi, and then followed by Honorable Reddy.
Hey, Speaker. We recognize amadoda. Thanks, Speaker.
Honorable. Honorable Kalipi, just make your point.
Thanks, Speaker. Yes, indeed. In the Chiefs Forum yesterday, we received this presentation. And as much as we thought that we understood the process, firstly, Speaker, your rules must be very simple because it complicates all the processes. That's why we keep on asking the same questions, because we want to understand clearly what are the steps. So before we even get into the first reading of the bill, Mr. Kaso must come back and explain, because the first step, I think, is number 2 on the presentation that talks about the committee report. And that one must be very clear. Once the committee report has been tabled, I think you said in the Chiefs Forum yesterday, there will be a debate for all parties. So therefore, just simplify that. If the committee report is rejected, are we continuing with the bill, first reading of the bill, or we deadlock on the first part, which is the committee report, and then we go on and on and on? And this thing of individual votes, it was explained, but it still have some confusion. So please clarify to that one. And secondly, Speaker, I don't understand when Mr. Kaso said, if the bill failed or not passed, so it must go back to the committee for further processing. Is not the case that if we as Parliament fail to pass the budget, we must go to fresh elections? Because yesterday the House Chair tried to also to put that narrative to say the political parties, the chief whips, they must also understand what will be happening if the budget failed to be passed on the 23rd of July. So I think you also have to clarify that, because if you are saying that we must take it back to the committee for further processing or to amend the report and so on, but the fact of the matter, it will mean that we as Parliament failed to pass the budget. So does that mean that if Parliament failed to pass the budget, let us go to fresh elections? Can one clarify that aspect as well, Speaker? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kaso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the committee report, our view is that if the report is rejected, the House should be able to still proceed to the bill, because the House can vote. The House does not have to agree with the committee to start with, because the House possesses plenary powers. The committee is the substructure of the House. So our view is that the committee, even if the committee report were to be defeated, which is unlikely, given the threshold for passing of committee reports and the quorum, we think that the House should still proceed to the first reading of the bill. It is at the first reading of the bill where if that bill is rejected, then the process ends there. Now, we think that at the point of the votes, because the votes would not be agreed to for various reasons, and let's just assume that it's for technical reasons, it's about the rands and cents in the vote. That is effectively a proposal to amend the budget. And in that context, we think the process to follow is to give this process a second chance. Send the bill back to find ways and means to make it work. And we think at that stage, it is still possible for the bill to be rescued, for lack of a better word. So that is our position on the matter. My colleague from Legal Services is here, Advocate Jenkins. We've been working on this thing together, his team and my team, and therefore we'll be able to assist each other. But that is our position, Honorable Kalipi. The bill at that level must go back to the committee so that the committee can look at the nature of the amendments required, the implications of the amendment proposed, and come back to the House with a report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Reddy.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Makobela there has covered what I wanted to say, but my second point, and I want to really, I'm not speaking politics at all here. I'm not speaking politics. I think for the first time in democratic history, we find ourselves in this type of a situation. And let me explain to you what I mean. The budget itself, the fear is that it may end up where a PC recommendation will not be adopted. And why we say that, it's because you're looking at a multi-party system here. So how parties voted in the PC, they're going to vote in that way in the sitting on Wednesday. So it will give you some idea, and I think that's where the concern is coming from. Let's not beat around the bush, and let's just lay the cards on the table. There is a fear here that some of the votes will not get the full support of the House because of the way the votes took place in those committees. Now, sometimes what we're doing also is we're over-educating some of these GNU people, because we know for some of them, it's not about the content and the issues of the budget. For them, it's about jockeying and trying to see what they can squeeze out of ANC, whether it's more deputy ministers or more ministers and more positions like that. That's what it's all about here. People are fighting to see how they can get positions. Now, Honorable Kalipi is correct. Let's look at what the law says. The law says that if the budget cannot be passed, you don't go and try to fix it by trying to do deals here. The reality is the budget can't be passed. Then you go for a fresh election. That's what the law says. Why are we trying to circumvent the law and trying to now see how we can allow these parties to go behind the corner and talk to each other, offer deals, do this, do that, all sorts of things, try to make them happy, give them more blue lights, etc., to try and squeeze a budget that clearly doesn't have the full support of the House. It's like us trying to take something, a puzzle, and trying to fit it in a space where it can't fit. The puzzle piece is too small and that space is too big. We're trying to make it fit. Can't work, Speaker. Please, and I rise now on a point of privilege, and I want to appeal to the members here. Let's look at the law in its raw form, and let's follow the law. If the law says you can't pass the budget, then so be it. Let's go for a fresh election. Thank you.
Honorable Reddy, I note what you are saying also on the point of privilege, but also indeed we need to look at the law that you are referring to, which is that law, but also you must know that there are rules that are adopted by all of us as members of parliament in each and every administration on how we run our business. So when we look at the law, we also need to look at it with our rules as the National Assembly. Honorable Ghana, Mr. Klasso first and then Ghana.
Speaker, yeah, maybe before I deal with this, just to complete the point that Honorable Kalipi raised, there will be a debate, a full debate on the first reading before the decision on the matter. So there will be a full debate. The committee report will, but the first reading will carry a debate and then a decision. Speaker, this is our advice that we've given, it's our considered view. from both a procedural and legal point of view, that at the point of the votes, it is still possible to send a bill back to the committee. I note the position of the honourable member, but this is our submission, that both the rules and the law do not disallow the way forward that we are recommending at this stage of processing this bill. Thank you.
Honorable Ghana.
Thanks very much, Speaker. I just want to ask Mr. Taso, let's say we accept your recommendation so far as taking the bill back to the committee. What are the timeframes that we are looking at? So that's the first one. And then the second one, let's say, for instance, there is an indication insofar as how the votes could likely turn out. Is there a prescription in the rules that says that, for instance, we have to take the votes sequentially as they appear, or we could, let's say, for instance, deal with those that let's say there's a general consensus on, and then those other ones could then be dealt with at the later point as a second one. And the third one, so looking at what happens in the other parliament, is there a possibility of, let's say, a speeding up of the work when the bill is sent back to the committee, that we might have to work through the weekend to try to get the bill passed? And then the final point, the final question, Madam Speaker, it's what are the implications to the public service? Has that been looked at insofar as the implications of this, let's say, the rejection of the entire bill? What does it mean for the public service as a whole? Are we staring a situation wherein the public servants might have to stay at home? Thanks.
Mr. Carson?
We can't hear anything now, Speaker. Completely out.
Okay, I'll share my responses with Mr. Jenkins on this one, Madam Speaker. The time frames is that the budget must be passed within 4 months. That 4 months ends now, end of July. And members must also just bear in mind that from the NA, the budget must go to the NCOP. So the NCOP still needs to go through its own processes. Can the timeframes be managed? Yes, the timeframes can be managed. Committees can meet anytime, can meet Fridays, Saturdays, even Sundays, because permission would have to be given. And there could be an understanding between the committees and the executive members to be available to give their inputs if there is a need for amendments, for instance, because the law says they must be consulted, both the minister concerned and the Minister of Finance. So that process can be managed. It can even sit, evening into the night, to the morning. That is possible. I'll ask Advocate Jenkins to talk about the implications for the state for service delivery in terms of what the PFMA says. With your permission, Madam Speaker, Advocate Jenkins.
Advocate Jenkins.
Good morning, honourable members. Good morning, Speaker and colleagues. The PFMA sets out how funds can be used prior to a budget being passed. The first 4 months has a specific regulation of 45% of the previous year, and then thereafter 10% per month of the previous year. But of course, there's no new programs that come in. It may only be used for programs that are the same as last year. And of course, the Minister of Finance has certain powers in terms of the PFMA for certain emergency procurement or certain emergency expenditures. So there are regulations, there are laws to deal with the matter. While I am on the platform, Madam Speaker, the question of what happens if Parliament cannot pass the budget. I've advised before, and I will say it again, that the PFMA and the Constitution doesn't envisage that. It envisages Parliament working it out and passing a budget eventually. The issue of an implied sort of motion of no confidence when a budget is not passed is not applicable in South Africa. If we look at the reason I'm saying that is because if you look at Section 50 of the Constitution, it says there's two ways of National Assembly or elections being called. One is, of course, the term of the National Assembly expires. The second is the National Assembly adopts a resolution dissolving itself. And that, the last one, is the one that we will have to look at here, in my view. I just quickly looked at it, but that cannot happen until 3 years have passed since the elections. So the Constitution doesn't envisage that on the first or the second year after election, and there's difficulty passing a budget, that there should be new elections. That's my reading of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ntuli, Honorable Ntuli.
No, thanks, Speaker. Good morning to you and good morning to all the honorable members in the meeting. I think firstly, let's thank the team for coming back with a little bit more information than we had yesterday when we were discussing in the Chiefs Forum. And I'm also happy that in their intervention today, they have also considered the suggestions that we made in our meeting. However, Madam Speaker, I think Honorable Ghana has raised an issue that has not been either not responded or not adequately responded. And that issue relates to the fact that maybe if I were to just give a background to this. Sitting here, we know because parties have made public declaration which votes they are going to vote for and which ones they are not going to vote for. We know where the DA stand. It has communicated that to the public, unless if it changes it. And we know that the MK party has tended to vote against everything. So we know that. Now, in a situation like that, where not everything is unknown to us, there's quite a few things that are quite known by ourselves and Parliament. Mr. Ghana raises a question whether it is not going to be possible, maybe to rephrase his question, which I hope I understood well. Would it not be possible that when Parliament deals with the bills, let's assume that we pass the first two stages. Stage one, Mr. Klaso has clarified that the report does not have to be agreed or disagreed to. Stage two is the first reading of the bill and followed by the debate. And he had omitted that in his earlier presentation, and I'm glad that he has added it as well. Subsequent to the debate, the motion is going to be put before the House. Support or not support, call for division, all of that. Assuming that we pass stage 1 and 2, we agree that the first reading after debate goes through, majority agrees. And we now have to be confronted by the reading or the consideration of each and every vote. The question that arises, which is what I think Ghana was raising, would it not be possible or be permissible in law that we start with the votes where we all know they are not contentious in terms of the positions adopted by the various political parties? Because if we do so, and that would address the concern we're raising yesterday, if we do so, it will mean that we deal with all of those votes, they are done. you put them aside. You then have to come back to the areas where there are major disagreements. We know those ones, and some of them are the ones that at least I know are political. They are not technical. So you come to the political issues where there are disagreements. You deal with the first of those, you don't go through. And then the House adjourns, because at that point, you know that in these three areas, we don't agree. And that is where things must go back. And of course, when they are referred back to the committee, in a situation where you are referring back to a committee, a political disagreement, the committee is not going to find any solution. It will be an academic exercise to send it back to the committee. Because what will the committee do? If people say, no, we're not voting for this budget because the minister is the person who have certain views about, the committee can't solve that problem. So it may be procedurally correct in terms of what Parliament can and cannot do to say, I'm referring this matter back to the committee. But the question will still remain, to do what? What is it that the committee is going to do? Another scenario would be that even those who are driven by certain political motives in terms of the positions they've adopted on these matters, if they decide that just to dress up their political disagreements, to clothe them in a way that may appear acceptable in society, they raise technical issues. That sure, I disagree with higher education for the following reasons, but here are technical issues that I am challenging on that budget, as a consequence of which I would not support and it doesn't get through. Then the committee has got substantial work to do, because before it is technical issues that relate to the rands and cents about the bill. So then we know the committee has got something to do in that case, because it has to attend to that issue. But the question that I think remains to be answered, and I'm not quite convinced that it's being properly answered by the advocate Jenkins. I don't disagree with him in terms of what he says the law says. But I have a problem that he is unable to give us a sense of what would then happen where the law doesn't specify. The matter goes back to the committee. Let's say that scenario prevails. Go back to the committee. The first question we need to answer, how long does it stay with the committee? If it's a technical issue, obviously it's easy that it can come back. But how long does it take in the committee? And what are the implications of that in the context of what we were told before and today, that the budget processes must have been concluded before the end of July? If we refer back, how long and what are the implications? The last issue is that, sure, it's clear that the Constitution does not envisage that you might have a difficult to pass a budget within the first 2 or 3 years of your term, and therefore it doesn't envisage that you will call for the elections at that time. The elections can only be called after 3 years, as I think the advocate was explaining. But the practical question that we have got to get an answer on legally, in my view, what then happens? Because we understand that at the moment, departments are not operating on the full scale of the budget. What then happens when you are unable to pass the budget so that the department are going to operate at a full scale? So I think, Madam Speaker, we have to have clarity on those issues. And I know that, and I can say this in this meeting, that of course, where there are political disagreements, the matters are referred to the committee, and the committee looks at this thing and says, but we have no role in this, we're going back to the National Assembly. Obviously, the parties that constitute the National Assembly will have a responsibility, having fully appreciated the consequences of their disagreement, on how to respond to the committee when it brings back the budget. But it's important to understand by when, in terms of our existing law, or that we may have to create as a new law if it doesn't exist, or as a new parliamentary legal position that we may have to decide through our own, create through our own decision, because we are faced with a situation that is unprecedented. It was never anticipated by the lawmakers. And I just want to conclude, as I said yesterday, Speaker, when Advocate Jenkins was talking, that the law was created for rational people. When you create law, the assumption is that it will be applicable in a society of rational people who will apply the law rationally. But unfortunately, the reality tends to be contrary to that. A rational law not always have to be implemented or find a compliance from human beings that are supposed to conform to the rationality of the law. I think we're faced with that situation now. Now, we need to imagine what is it that we need to do, we can do within our powers as parliament in an event where the law is silent. Because some of the legal prescripts we are following were determined by the same parliament. That they find expression now in certain acts or in the constitution, but originally they came from parliament. So where there is a challenge in terms of how we should be proceeding, I do want to suggest that our legal team must go an extra mile to help us to answer the questions where there are gaps. Thanks.
Mr. Kasu?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will go as far as I can, and then my colleague will come in. Chief Whip, in terms of the order or the sequence of the votes, I think it is doable. It is doable, but we will confirm that view that you could, instead of putting vote 3, you decide to put vote 10, and then go back to vote 4, and then 3 later on. That should not, in my view, be a big issue, because Rule 3 has a schedule, has been approved. The vote in the schedule must be discussed. And of course, 328 says the Assembly must first decide on the separate votes in the schedule to an appropriation bill, and thereafter on the schedule. So it does not prescribe that it must be from 1, 2, 3, and 42, but the issue is that you must deal with all those votes. Now, if there's a need, that there must be suspension of business to consult, that is doable also. Business can be suspended and parties will be able to consult. So there's really no issue there. It can be done. And of course, you're right, Chief Whip. We move from the point of view that what we'll be referring to the committee would really be on technical issues. That is why I mentioned the range and fence. We would not necessarily be referring it to deal with political issues. So we'll have to see how best we deal with that. Now, I would just like to read section 29 of the PFMA, because the budget must be passed by the end of July. If it is not passed, Section 29 of the PFMA says, if an annual budget is not passed before the start of the financial year to which it relates, funds may be withdrawn in accordance with this section from the relevant revenue fund for the services of the state or the province concerned during that financial year as direct charges against the fund until the budget is passed. Now, it goes on as follows. Funds withdrawn from the revenue fund in terms of subsection 1 may be utilized only for services for which the funds were appropriated in the previous annual budget or adjustments budget. And B, may not, during the first 4 months of that financial year, exceed 45% of the total amount appropriated in the previous annual budget. Now, during the first 4 months of that financial year, that is between April and now, July, it may not exceed 45% of the total amount appropriated in the previous annual budget. During each of the following months, in other words, from August, it may not exceed 10% of the total amount appropriated in the previous annual budget, and in aggregate exceed the total amount appropriated in the previous annual budget. So that's really what the PFMA says on this matter. Advocate Jenkins, at this point to you, Madam Speaker.
Advocate Jenkins?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Thank you very much. I'd just like to add to that clause that Mr. Klasu has read, that when we read the appropriation bill of the Appropriation Act of 2024, there's further provisions in there how that money may be used. Because as with the bill that the House must still consider, we will see there's a provision in there that say if funds are used prior to the coming into operation, let me talk about this year's budget, prior to coming into operation of the 2025-26 annual budget, then that provision of the PFMA applies, and then it also says that these funds can be used only for existing programs, not for new programs, and it also then indicates that those money used will be deducted from the budget when it is finally passed. So that is where we are, ma'am. Madam Speaker, the question about how long does it go back to the committee, what must the committee do, that's really all within Parliament's authority to determine its internal arrangements here, ma'am, because there's nothing specific. It's nothing to say that if the budget can't be passed, this must happen or that must happen. What is out there is that the budget must be passed. So what I envisage or just contemplate is that someone in the public or civil society will come forward and says Parliament is not able to do this, then I'm going to make an application to court. Because the Money Bills Act says that it must be passed within 4 months, and Parliament needs to give a reason at least, which the courts will look at as what is rational. And there has to be a rational reason why this cannot be passed. And what has Parliament done to pass it? So I'm just trying to play with that idea, but I think that's the next step. There's nothing that I can find in legislation to say if Parliament is unable to pass a law, then the executive or the Minister of Finance can put in an interim budget. That kind of provisions we get at local government level, as you are well aware of. When a council can't pass a budget, then the MEC can pass an interim budget for that council. So we don't have that at national level, but so that's my response to that. Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngabane.
Speaker, thank you very much. Speaker, I don't understand if for example, the chief whip of the majority, the largest party, says they've already identified which budgets some members of the GNU are not going to support. Why must we wait for the process on the 23rd to do political management? Is that political management not supposed to take beforehand so that the program of Parliament is not disrupted because there are some disagreements within the GNU arrangement? We shouldn't burden this structure with those issues, because if we already know which ones they didn't support, budgets they didn't support at committee level when they were debating them, there we go, we have the information we want. Then the political process should begin. It should not be the responsibility of this structure to sort of try and nanny now the GNU arrangement. Two, what I don't understand is that the submission, rather the report I got, I could not be in the chief whips yesterday because I was in appropriations, but the report I got was in line with what I think it was a colleague from the EFF who said, if one of the votes, for example, does not pass in the schedule, the whole thing goes back. Now, if we are saying we would still be able to go through the schedule, does that mean that the legal opinion has been revised? Or is it because now it's being looked at from a pragmatic point of view, but informed by what? Because the report we got yesterday is exactly what we communicated to parties. So we want to be clear exactly whether the new position now is informed by a revision of the legal opinion or was looked at from a pragmatic point of view to see what works and would not work. But I want to appeal to say the political footwork should start taking place between now and when Parliament processes the budget. And by the time Parliament processes the budget, we should not apply the rules of Parliament and see how best we can be able to work within the framework we have. We can't expect it to provide for things that the rules aren't made for. So the budget process that must take place, we get there, having reached some kind of consensus with a clear way forward, and not burden other parties that are not part of that arrangement with those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cousin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Kwama, you're quite correct. That was our position at the start of the meeting yesterday. We were then asked to review the position and look at whether it will be permissible.
By the meeting.
That's what the meeting said. The Chief Whips Forum asked us if it would be permissible to go through all the votes so that if you have to refer this matter back to the committee, you can give them a full picture of the position of the House on the votes. So that's really what informs what we are saying today. We're saying it is not illegal to go through all the votes. It is we think it is reasonable to request for that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I were to just add, Honorable Nkwanga, you are correct. And I'm sure Honorable Ntuli understands that too, that where the issues are of a political nature, I think different political parties will have to engage. What we deal with, it's more the process, as Honorable Kaso had said, that if the effect of a non-support on a vote, it's based on how those matters in terms of the finances either are not adequate or this budget line should not have had so much money as opposed to the other. Those are the issues that the committee can be able to deal with. But the political issues as a result of why the non-support of the vote, indeed, political parties will have to engage. And I hope that parties, as they've been going through their votes, they have understood where the differences might be amongst them and will be able to do so and not burden, indeed, the whole parliament on some of the matters that can be dealt with bilaterally by parties. Honorable Dagmo.
And thanks very much, Speaker, and greetings to the colleagues on the platform. I think, the context, of course, is that Parliament has adopted the fiscal framework. Parliament has adopted the Division of Revenue bill, and we are now at this issue of appropriations. And it is correct that there was an engagement yesterday, and I think the Chief Whip had raised the issue of whether we would be able to, even if people have a problem with one particular vote, we'd be able to simply go through all of them to get a sense. And I think that was the basic change that then, has been presented today. And, I would agree with that. And I think there does seem to be support also for the idea of trying to identify which of those votes generally have support and which of those particular votes that don't. So I think the ordering is also something that is a new thing that has come up today, but it does seem that there would be support for that. And then the second issue is that it was clarified that, Parliament has the right to pass a resolution. So there are these different scenarios. So for instance, if the second reading, the first stage is not supported, Parliament can still then, discuss a resolution which suggests the way forward in terms of what should happen. So I think there needs to be a detailed, the document that has been tabled, outlines, the procedure and the legal framework. But I think what we need is a document which begins to say, in this scenario, I think the issue of the committee report has been dealt with. We're actually talking about a vote when we get to the first reading. Okay. And then that scenario needs to be included in the document that's before us. That's a scenario. What could happen is Parliament passes a resolution which gives direction. We should remember that in the first fiscal framework, there was a majority and it included GNU and non-GNU parties, and it excluded some GNU parties. And that resolution gave the House 30 days, to look at the VAT issue and so on. So Parliament can create a resolution to deal with a particular scenario, and if the majority of the House supports that resolution, that can then give direction. We also clarified in the Chief Whips Forum that parties have options, to vote for, to vote against, also to abstain, and that's a different way of expressing a view on a budget. But the second last suggestion that I would like to make, the first one being the document before us should also go further and begin to actually put forward different scenarios and how those scenarios would be dealt with. But I think that given, the sort of like, let's call it the legal uncertainty around, the possible situation of the budget not going through, I think part of what we need to look at is what amendments would be required, whether it's to the PFMA, whether it's any other particular amendment, because maybe then Parliament would need to resolve that, we need to look at particular amendments to legislation, and Parliament is the lawmaker, to then deal with the situation beyond the end of July. I think the legal advisor has indicated clearly that the honourable member from the MKP's enthusiasm to have an election is not catered for in the sense of the 3-year period, and possibly the MKP, would also consider how they did in the by-elections yesterday. So it's not necessarily a good option for the MKP to try.
Honourable Dagmo, I think let's not bring in other issues that are not part of.
So let me conclude. Sorry, Speaker. Let me conclude by saying, let me conclude by saying, I think we need to look at a proposal around what legislative amendments would be required to deal with an impasse, and then Parliament could possibly include that in a resolution and then move on the issue of legislation. I think those would all be things that could be considered. Thank you.
Mr. Kasu?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Right, I think we've dealt with the scenarios about next week. I think the other rule that maybe I should just read, which we dealt with yesterday, is Rule 332, which talks about same bill may not be introduced more than once. The rule says when a bill has been passed or has been rejected during a session in any year, no bill of the same substance may be introduced in the Assembly in that year, except by leave of the Assembly, or where otherwise provided in these rules. So in the undesirable event that the appropriation bill is rejected, this rule would then kick in. But of course, the House can always decide by way of a resolution that the same bill with the same substance can be reintroduced in the Assembly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Ntuli, followed by Honourable Kalipi.
No, thanks, Speaker. I'm sure you would understand that this is not a small matter. Colleagues will understand that when we make a second bite, is precisely because of the weight of the issue that we're dealing with. Firstly, there is no substitute, Madam Speaker, in terms of the political work that has got to be done. You and Honourable Kwangwa are perfectly correct. I understand that work to have begun. It just has to be intensified. But of course, when we are on a crossroad like we find ourselves in, we have to plan for various scenarios. The scenario which produces the outcome that we want, and the scenario that whose eventuality is not exactly in our own specifications. Now, I want Speaker to suggest that this meeting must agree firmly that in an event where we succeed to move into the stages where we're dealing with individual bills, let's start with those that will not be, or that we understand are not contentious in terms of how parties have expressed their views in the process up to where we are today. I want to propose that we firm up that position, because the logic of taking that position is that whatever you refer back to the committee, you know that we are not referring everything, because what we wanted to deal with today when we're making this suggestion is that if you were to start with vote 1, president, let's say that is vote number 1 in terms of the sequence, and then you agree, vote 2, speaker, we disagree. We don't even know how we're going to behave in the rest of the votes. And we then say, because we have disagreed on vote 2, let the matter be taken out of the plenary and go to a portfolio committee. The logic of saying, let's deal with all the votes and isolate those that we disagree on is so that when we leave on that day, when the plenary adjourns, we fully appreciate where areas of disagreements are located, whether they are political or technical, but we know where they are. And whatever that is referred to the committee is on the basis of our full understanding of where the areas of disagreements are located. The last point I want to mention, Speaker, is that I would like to suggest that when the matter is being handled in the plenary, I want to ask you and your office to look at this area around the time frame. If we take a decision at a plenary that the matter must be referred back to the committee, may you please, beyond this meeting, I'm asking that you look at what could be the possible time frame, if any, taking into cognizance as well the latter comment that were made by Mr. Castle about what the law says when a bill has been rejected by the House. I would like to request that your office must help us to navigate that, so that when we meet on that day, there is some proposal or clarity from the table in terms of how should we then proceed with regard to the time frame, and in the context of what Mr. Castle's letter comment was saying about what happens to the bill that has been rejected by Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhaliphi.
Now, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to. There is a legal gap. So the rules of Parliament plus the Act of Parliament are not helping in this situation, and they were not made or designed to address the issues where we find ourselves. The country is run by in a form of coalition. So therefore, I'll propose that the Parliament must move with speed to have acts and rules of Parliament that we find ourselves in this situation. And I want to be fully agree with Honorable Mkwakwa to say, but politically, we must not be managed and we must not be surprised, because we are in a coalition. The ANC is in a coalition with the DA. For sure, they know in your caucuses, you know what the position of the DA and what is the position of the ANC. But to come here in the programming committee and to start afresh, pretending as if we don't know what will happen or what is the position of the political parties, especially those that are in GNU, I think is disingenuous. I think that, Speaker, must take us to confidence to say what will happen should the DA oppose or vote against the appropriation bill on the 23rd of July. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Indeed, in terms of the request for further legal clarity, we will do so, but also looking at our rules. And if there's a need for quicker consultation again with both the whips and the programming committee before next week, when the budget is tabled, when the appropriation is tabled, we will actually have a meeting, even if it means it's an online meeting like today, so that all the parties will be appraised on if there are any new matters in terms of further legal clarity, if there's a need for some amendment of the rules, that will be done. Honorable Castle? Mr. Castle, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Clarify the point by Chief Whip Dolly. Chief Whip, you were proposing that, I want to check if this was a proposal or just a view, that but also I think you've confirmed the issue about dealing with all the votes. The issue of the timeframes, we have taken note of that. So was this your proposal that we start with non-contentious votes? And of course, our point again would be that we would need to know which votes those are. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Mtumsani, can you clarify?
Yes. Thanks, Speaker. Yes, definitely, that was my proposal, because even when we discussed this issue yesterday, there were no disagreements about the need for us to know at the end of the proceedings why exactly our disagreements lies at the plenary. So I'm saying that discussion we had yesterday, which I suppose was bringing all of us together as parties, let's carry it through to the plenary, given the fact that Mr. Klaso has confirmed that it would not be illegal for us to take that direction. Now, let me just say to you, as I indicated earlier on, we know where areas of disagreements are. With the exception of other political parties, we know that the DA has said that they are not going to support the following votes. That has been public statement. It is known. So my argument is that those votes that were publicly condemned and positions were taken against them, let's do them last. It may very well be that any other party here has not said anything public, but it will decide on the day that we also disagree with vote 4 or vote 5, whoever is in that vote. We can deal with that differently. Because in my own view, we would have dealt with the bigger part of the problem, which is the areas where there are known disagreements. And I want to conclude, Speaker, by saying, I had made the point earlier on that what has been the trend in this parliament is that the MK party disagrees with everything. But their disagreement with everything has not always been carried through, because it has not always been the case that the majority will be inside of a permanently disagreeing party, which is the MK party. And I'm not criticizing them for that. I'm just stating the objective reality that we have had to contend with since the beginning of this term. So I have no problem with the MK disagreeing from one to the last vote. But I'm saying the known disagreements which can cause us not to go through with the budget, let's rather handle them at the end of the process. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Ntuli. Honorable Ntuli, if we agree that all the votes will be put before a final decision is taken, I think it may not be ideal to whether you start with those that you agree with or end with them, because at every vote, parties will make their declarations on the direction in which they would want to go. So it's unlike where you'd say if on vote 2, you don't agree, everything stops, you go back. You will still have to go on all the votes, and as parties declare, we will understand exactly where the contentions in each votes are. Honorable Reddy?
Thank you, Speaker. Just, I hear what the Chief Whip of the ANC is saying, and I know also where he's coming from. But I don't believe, and I tend to agree with you here, let us allow the process to continue. Let's not now, because remember, some parties did not declare how they're going to vote. You cannot say for certain that this is how the party is going to vote. And I know that there'll be a lot of jockeying and behind the scenes negotiations taking place over this weekend. And even on the day of the meeting itself, there will be behind the scenes meetings. We all know about the toilet meeting that took place during one of the full sittings as well. So there may be more toilet meetings too. So what I suggest to do is let's continue. I withdraw, Speaker. Let me get to the point. Let's allow the process to unfold. Vote the first vote, second vote, and then we take it from there. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As indicated earlier, we will come back to you as further clarity on where there might be legal gaps, as also where there might be issues in terms of our rules that might need consideration swiftly. I'll move to the consideration of the parliamentary program, and I would like to actually ask that we take that as read unless there's anything new. Honorable Dagmo, I'm conscious of the time that parties are having their caucuses at 10, and it's 9:50. So we
Thank
only
you.
have got 10 minutes
Yeah.
left for this.
No, thank you, Speaker. I would support your view that we take it as read. I just think members' attention needs to be drawn to the fact that, obviously we know that today the President will respond to the debate around vote 1. And we know about committees happening tomorrow. I think all of us are clear about next week. The only thing I want members to add, if we could just go back up to Tuesday, go back to Tuesday. You can see there that colleagues should note that we actually have that morning session to deal with the protocol on women and youth in trade to the agreement on the African Continental Free Trade Area, and then those 2 reports at 2 and 3. I don't need to go through them. And then we obviously then go to the afternoon session, which is the plenary continued.
Honorable Dagmo, we have said we take it as read unless there is something new in the program.
Okay. Yeah, the
But
only thing
all what is there, members have it.
Yeah. Okay. Speaker, the only thing that's new, and also I think we should take it as read, is the fact that there are proposals as to what happens after the recess period. I won't go through those, but members should just consider that there is also now proposals for post-recess. I won't go through them, but members should just note that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment on the program, Honorable Kalibi?
Yes, Speaker. On the Chiefs Forum yesterday, I raised this issue of the motion. I think there's a memo to the Chiefs Forum regards to 2 motions. The first motion is seeking to revive the mandate that was previously given to some identified committees of the House to investigate the problem of statutory rape. And I think that motion will be placed on the 22nd of July. So we have, as EFF, made a specific recommendation that we want to make a declaration because this matter is very serious in nature, and some of the committees does not have a serious attempt to deal with matters of such importance. So Babu Paso and the programming whip said is going to consider that. So we want to know if is it considered so we can prepare accordingly, as we mentioned that we are going to our caucuses, so we can communicate with our caucus. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kaso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there was no objection in the Chief Whip's Forum. So our advice is that declarations be permitted on the motion next week. And that's number 1. Number 2, we will take the 3rd term program as agreed to so that it can be circulated as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Ntuli.
No, thanks, Chair. I want to also support that the program is agreed to, as was discussed yesterday. And I was going to also raise the matter that the EFF Kalipe has raised, that they made that proposal and quite correctly, nobody disagreed. So let's agree with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Program has been agreed to, and the issue of the motion has been settled. Can we now move to the consideration of the minutes? Bearing in mind we have got 7 minutes. We also take it that members have read the minutes. I just want to go whether there is any member who would like to point us to any corrections, if there are any. I don't see any hand. Can I get the mover for adoption of our minutes?
I move. Speaker, I move. Acceptance.
Honorable Dagmo moves. Any seconder?
Dumiseni Ntuli.
Thank you. I thought Reddy was going to, Honorable Reddy was going to second because he was making sure that we finish the meeting on time for his meeting. Are there any matters arising, Mr. Klasu?
Speaker, there was an issue about the Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill Indeed, we want to confirm that the bill is still before the NCOP, and there was a call there in submissions, and the deadline was 30th June, so the bill is still there. Members training, there was a request for some report from that session, and we have circulated the feedback report in terms of what the members have said about the training. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much for the update on those matters. Honorable members, I would like to thank you for your participation in this meeting and your contributions. This brings us to the end of our meeting. Meeting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you.
Recording stopped.